erasing the startup configuration, like the configuration on the device, or deleting the configuration from the device. Now, in order to do that, first let us try to understand the process, how we get the configuration. What happens? You power on the device. Your device, your Cisco device, has got an operating system which is called iOS. It is found on the flash. Okay, so flash is like a small hard drive. Okay, so flash is like a small hard drive. Okay, but it is not like your magnetic hard drive. It is like SSD. It is very fast. So iOS is loaded from flash, you can say. You have the startup config. The startup config is found on the NVRAM. So NVRAM is not like a RAM. It is a non-volatile memory. Startup config is loaded from the NVRAM to the RAM as a running config. Now look at here very carefully. The startup config becomes the running config, but they are not the same thing. They are completely different. A RAM is a volatile memory, and if you don't have power, it loses the configuration. And your VLANs are loaded, like if this is a switch, it is loaded from the flash as well. Okay, so inside the flash you have a file which is called vlan.dat file that contains the information about the VLANs. Now let's come here. Let's take a switch and let's take a router. So if you look at here very carefully, it is loading, and it is already loaded. Now if you do enable, let's change the host name S1. Okay, now if you look at here very carefully, the name of the switch was switch. Now it has become S1. Did you save the configuration? You didn't save the configuration. So what will happen if you don't save the configuration? If you just reload, okay, so reload is done from the privilege mode, but I can do the reload from the global configuration mode as well, but with the help of do at the beginning. Do reload. Look, I again repeat, if you do reload from the privilege mode, you don't need to put do. Reload is a command that should be put from the privilege mode. However, I don't want to change the mode. I'm on the global configuration mode, and some commands that should be done from the privilege mode could be done from the global configuration mode as well. Like for example, if you speak about the show command, the show command should be used from the privilege mode, but I can use it from the global configuration mode, provided that I use the word do at the beginning of the show command. So here is also the same. If I use do before reload, so if you look at here, the system configuration has been modified. Do you want to save the configuration? This is very important. Some people, they will put no. Some people, they will put no. Now it is saying previously it was switch, now it is S1. Do you want to save the configuration? Let's say I put no by mistake. Let's put no. Proceed with the reload. Read all the steps properly, and after that you answer yes, proceed with the reload. Now look at here, the S1 is no more there. Now let me just do that again. Hostname S1. Before you do any change, you need to save the configuration. How to save the configuration? Copy running. Okay, again, if you want to save the configuration, it has to be done from the privilege mode, not from here. Okay, so it will be copy running config startup config. Okay, this is the standard command. Copy running config startup config. Some people, they will get confused. Copy ru running config. So what I did here, I press the tab button. Okay, TAB. So here I press the tab button. Okay, so that I didn't have to write these things. Okay, they are auto filled. Do you want to save the configuration? Yes. And what will be the destination file name? You don't usually put anything, just put here enter. It will put something. Now there is another shortcut command as well, which is write. Okay, so if you look at here, you can just use write. Okay, that's it. And you see building configuration and building configuration. Okay, same thing, but this is the standard. Copy running config startup config. Okay, this is the most important thing. Okay, now we have saved the configuration. Even if you reload, it will never lose anything. Proceed with the reload. Yep. So if you look at here is S1. Now there is something called VLAN. So if you create a VLAN, let's configure VLAN. Let's say VLAN 10. Okay, exit. Now if you want to delete the VLAN, because the VLAN is stored on the so now you didn't save the configuration. So as long as you don't save the configuration, your configuration is on the running config. That means your configuration is on the running config, and that means is on the RAM. So if you just power off, if you just reload, your configuration will be lost. So you don't have to do anything. However, if you save the configuration, let's say copy running config startup config, that means even if I reload, I will still come up with VLAN 10. Okay, now first of all, let me show you how to erase the startup config. Now look at here very carefully. When you say copy running config startup config, so if you look at here, we know that the running config is running on RAM and the startup config is running on NVRAM. So if you look at here, RAM, NVRAM. Okay, so what happens here is this is volatile and this is non-volatile. So you are saying whatever you have in the running config, like for example you change the switch name, you say you put it in the startup config. So what happens next time when you turn on the router, it will load the configuration from NVRAM to the RAM. Okay, so it will load the startup configuration to the running configuration, and that is why any changes, like again let's say you created VLAN 10. So if you have created VLAN 10, you need to make sure that you save your running configuration to the NVRAM, so that Next time it's like a circle. It's like a cycle. Like from NVRAM, you can load to the RAM. Now, if you look at here, what you need to do, you need to erase startup config. Now, if you look at here what it says, erasing the startup config, we are never worried about the running config, because if we just restart the device, the running config will be lost anyway. But however, we already saved the running config to the startup config. And if we want a fresh device, okay, a clean device, like an out-of-box experience, like you just get this out of the box, then you need to delete the startup config. So you want to remove all the configurations, continue, yes. So if you look at here, erase of NVRAM completed. Okay, now reload. So once you reload, you will see S1 is not there. Proceed with the reload. Yep. I will show you something. Let me show you. Enable. Let us do something here. Okay, now look at here very carefully before I go there. You see, I erased the startup config. The switch name is back to normal, which is switch. However, the VLAN 10 is there, which I created earlier, because by default the switch doesn't come with a VLAN. It comes with VLAN 1, not with VLAN 10. Now, in order to delete the VLAN, because the VLAN is stored in the flash, okay, is stored in the flash, and so you need to do here delete VLAN dot dat, delete VLAN dot dat, delete the file name VLAN dot dat, yes, enter, delete from the flash, enter. Now what you need to do, you need to look, the best way, you do erase startup config, you do the delete VLAN, and after that you need to save. Copy, no, because you delete the VLAN. Now what you need to do, you need to do the reload. Okay, proceed with the reload. Yeah. Okay, now if you do here enable, and if you do here show VLAN, yes, you see VLAN 10 is not there. Just a recap. Okay, delete VLAN. Let's say we delete the VLAN, so you will put delete VLAN dot dat. Follow the step, then you do erase startup config, erase startup config. That means your startup config, there is no more configuration. It is like a fresh copy of the configuration, and after that you do reload. Okay, do not save anything. Okay, now the same thing will be for the router, but this is not required for the router. Why this is not required for the router? Because on a router you never configure VLAN, so you don't have to do that one. Only on the switch you configure VLAN, so you need that command. You need this command only for the switch, and this command is both for the router and the switch. Now let's come here. No, enable conf term host name R1. Now look at here, you need to save the configuration, right? Copy, exit, copy, running config, startup config. Okay, so your configuration has been saved. That means your startup config has been modified. Now you need to make sure that once you save this, if you reload, you still have R1. So let's do a reload. Yep. Now, if you want to remove everything, what you need to do, erase startup config. That's it. Now you see, erasing the NVRAM files, everything will be removed. Do you want to confirm? Yeah. If it says yes or something, you put yes. Okay. It has been erased. Now you might have a question. Hey Wasif, we erased the configuration, then how come we still have R1? Remember, whatever you are seeing here is the running config, which is in the RAM. And what did you delete? Erased? What did you erase? You erased the startup config, which is the NVRAM. So we are not worried about this running config. Why we are not worried about this running config? Because if you do a reload, your RAM will be like 0, like it cannot remember anything from the past. So it will be a fresh one. So we are not worried about the running config. What happens is, configuration from the NVRAM will be loaded to the RAM, and we make sure that in the NVRAM it is erased. There is nothing there. So you get a fresh copy of the configuration in the RAM. Okay, so that is what we need to do. Just do a reload. Yep. Put here no, and if you look at here, we got the router. Okay, so I think it is clear how to save and erase configuration.